Okay, good afternoon, Year 11. We're just going to go through a very basic tutorial of Fusion360 for those of you who might not have used this software in Year 9 or 10. Just to begin, if you have a Mac, your interface will be slightly different to what you're seeing here on my PC. However, all the functions are the same, so you should still be able to produce what we're producing today. So just looking at the top of the screen, the functions that we're going to be working on today are really basic, just creating a sketch and then extruding a sketch that we've produced. So we're just going to be using these really basic functions today, and they're the most essential functions to producing anything on Fusion360. So to begin with, anytime we want to start a drawing, we click on this create a sketch icon. We're going to select the bottom interface or the bottom face, because I want to draw a rectangle on that particular plane there. Now, as you can see, if I drag that rectangle around, I can let go of the left trigger on my mouse and move it around wherever I want. What I want to do before I click it again to actually put it in place, if I go backwards, what I want to do is make sure that the dimensions are 50 millimeters by 50 millimeters for that shape. And I can move between the dimensions by pressing tab and then typing in the dimension that I want. I press enter like that, and I've got a 50 by 50 millimeter area for this particular square. Okay, so that's my first sketch. I then click up here on solid, and we move back to this extrude button I was talking about before, and it allows me to turn that square into a rectangular prism. And I want to bring that particular square up 50 millimeters as well, so that I've got a perfect cube. And if I click on this orbit button down here, I can then orbit to see that shape that I've got there. Okay, so I'll bring it back to the origin there. I then want to do an additive process. So we spoke about additive and subtractive processes earlier in the week. We're going to add a cylinder to the top of this cube here. So what I want to do first is click on that top face and click create a new sketch. Now if I zoom out and rotate, you can see that that new plane has been drawn onto that top surface. Okay. So I'm going to zoom back in, and I want to create a circle in the middle of this shape here. Now to find the middle, I click on this line tool and I draw two diagonal lines across this surface. And now I find the exact midpoint of this rectangular prism or cube, sorry. I then click on the circle tool from the midpoint and drag a circle out, and I want it to be 30 millimeters in diameter. So I click on that, and I can then see the circle there. If I delete these two lines, the diagonals that I drew originally, now I've got this circular shape here. So I'm going to click on that. I'm going to go back, click on solid, click on extrude, and I'm going to extrude that 30 millimeters. So that's an additive process. I've added this shape onto my cube. Okay, so have a go doing that. Once we've done that, we're going to go through a subtractive process now, and we're going to use exactly the same system. I want to draw a hole, or I want to drill a hole from this point here, this face here, all the way through this shape that I've built here. So I highlight that, click on create a sketch, and then I want to drill a hole through this face here. So if I hover my cursor near the middle of this particular face, because it's a circle, it actually shows me the midpoint. So I click on it once it's highlighted, and I'm going to cut a hole through that is 15 millimeters. Okay, so I click on that, and there we go. Now I'm going to highlight that, same way we did before. I'm going to go back to solid, and I'm going to go back to extrude, but rather than extruding outwards to create this camera lens kind of shape, we're going to extrude, we're going to pull it all the way through that shape. Okay, so if you draw it, you can actually see that we've extruded it through the bottom of that object. Now when I press enter, this object now has a hole through it. Okay, and you can rotate that to see that. The last thing we're going to do together now, so we've done an additive and a subtractive process. The last process that I want to show you now is a mirroring process. So we're going to create a new sketch, and you can pick any side of this object because it's symmetrical. You can pick any face, create a new sketch. Prefer to look at it in 2D. Then we're going to draw a line on this surface here down the middle of this face. Okay, now when it loads, if I click on this face here, this line here, and highlight it so it's blue, on the left hand side we've got this sketch palette. Okay, and what I want to do is click on this icon here called construction, and what it does is it turns this line into a construction line, which means I can no longer select it as a feature of my drawing to an extrusion. Okay, it just is there now as a reference line. Okay, so what I'm going to do once I've done that, I'm going to click on the line tool, and I want to create a taper or a diagonal line across here. So I'm going to go from the outside point, I'm going to drag my line in so it can be 10 mil, that's fine. And now I've got this point over here, and then I'm going to drag that line and draw a line all the way up to the top. So I've got a diagonal line here. What I'm going to do now is go to this section of the sketching palette here and click on this line called mirror, or this icon called mirror. And then the first thing I'm going to click on is the object line. So this is the object that I want to mirror. And then when I click on the mirror line, I can select this construction line that I've made. And then what the computer does actually is it produces a line that is perfectly symmetrical to that line that I've created. So it mirrors that. So I can unselect that. If I was to deselect that, you would see that it goes. So once I select that mirror line, this pops up over here. So I'm going to accept that, and you can see here that this is now symmetrical. Then I'm going to highlight this triangle here, hold down Shift and highlight this one at the same time, and we're going to do another extrusion, another negative extrusion. So we're going to click on solid, we're going to click on extrude, and rather than extruding out, we want to extrude in a negative way. And we've now got this shape here. Okay, like that. What we're going to do now is the same process. Actually, we'll leave that there. Okay, so up to this point, if you kind of haven't followed on anything that I've said throughout this demonstration, can I just get you to watch it again, and after each step that I make, pause your video that you're watching it on and try to replicate it in your own Fusion 360. Again, if you have any issues, don't hesitate to see me in class about it, but this is just 5 simple steps to start making basic models using Fusion 360 in an additive and subtractive process. Have a good afternoon, guys.